What if the deadliest army in human history, the Mongols, finally met their match, not in some mighty empire, but in a group of former slaves wielding a brand new weapon that no one had ever seen before? This was the moment when fear met fire. The unstoppable horde that crushed cities across Asia and Europe was brought to its knees in one single day by thunder, smoke, and strategy. This is the forgotten story of the Battle of Ain Jalut, where innovation shattered the myth of Mongol invincibility. It's 1260. For decades, the Mongols have burned their way across the world, an army so fierce that kings surrendered before the first arrow was fired. From the steppes of Mongolia, they built an empire that stretched from Korea to the edge of Europe. They conquered China, Persia, Russia, and even Baghdad, the heart of Islamic civilization. But when they reached the Middle East, they didn't just meet another army, they met a new kind of warfare. In the narrow valley of Ain Jalut, their luck ran out. And what happened there didn't just decide the fate of empires, it introduced something that would change war forever: gunpowder on the battlefield. To understand how shocking this was, you need to know just how unbeatable the Mongols seemed. Their entire military system was a masterpiece of organization. Every warrior was a skilled horse archer who could hit a target while galloping at full speed. Their communication lines stretched for miles. Their generals used smoke signals, flags, and horns to control complex maneuvers. They used terror as a weapon, slaughtering entire cities to make others surrender. When word spread that the Mongols were coming, people ran before they even saw them. By the late 1250s, Hulagu Khan, grandson of Genghis Khan, led the Mongols into the Middle East. They destroyed Baghdad in 1258. The Tigris River ran black with ink from the city's libraries. Then came Aleppo. Then Damascus. The Islamic world trembled. And after Syria, there was only one great power left: the Mamluk Sultanate of Egypt. If the Mongols took Cairo, the entire Middle East would fall. The Mamluks knew this, and yet they refused to run. The Mamluks weren't nobles or princes. They were warrior slaves, boys captured from the Caucasus and Central Asia, raised in military schools, and trained from childhood to fight, ride, and obey. Over time, they became so powerful that they took over the government itself. By 1260, Egypt was ruled by one of them, Sultan Qutuz, a man who had once been enslaved and now faced the biggest army on earth. At his side was Baybars, a military genius who understood the Mongols better than anyone. He knew that the Mongols were fast, disciplined, and terrifying, but also arrogant. If they could be provoked, lured, and trapped, they could be beaten. Baybars convinced Qutuz that they had one chance to end the Mongol advance: fight them in the open and use cunning, terrain, and something new: the strange gunpowder weapon the Chinese had invented and Muslim engineers were beginning to experiment with. The stage was set. Then fate gave the Mamluks an opening. Hulagu Khan received word that the great Khan in Mongolia, his brother Munka, had died. Mongol law demanded he return home to participate in the election of a new ruler. So Hulagu took most of his army east, leaving behind about 10,000 Mongols under his trusted general Kitbuqa Noyan to hold Syria. Kitbuqa was brave, loyal, and ruthless. But now, he was outnumbered, deep in enemy territory, and about to walk straight into Baybar's trap. Baybars chose his ground carefully. The Jezreel Valley, in what's now northern Israel, was perfect. It was open enough for cavalry combat, but surrounded by hills and forest patches that could hide troops. A spring on Jalut, the Spring of Goliath, flowed through it, providing water and cover. Baybars placed his army strategically, a small vanguard at the front to bait the Mongols, archers and cavalry reserves hidden behind hills, and in the center, a small group armed with the new midfa, primitive hand cannons. They weren't powerful by modern standards, but they were loud, smoky, and terrifying. No one had ever seen or heard anything like them in battle before. At dawn on September 3, 1260, the Mongols arrived. Their banners glowed red in the sun. Their horns echoed across the valley. Kitbuqa saw Baybar's small vanguard and immediately charged. Arrows filled the sky. The Mamluk front line fought hard, then suddenly retreated. The Mongols thought they were winning. They charged faster, deeper into the valley, chasing the fleeing Mamluks. but the retreat was fake. As soon as the Mongols reached the center, the hidden Mamluk forces appeared on both sides, horns blaring, drums pounding. They closed the trap. The Mongols were surrounded, hemmed in by the hills, and caught in a storm of arrows. And then came the sound that changed everything. A deep, thunderous boom echoed across the valley. Smoke billowed. Horses reared. Men screamed. The Midfa had fired. Those hand cannons, crude bronze tubes packed with gunpowder, weren't killing machines yet, but their psychological impact was devastating. The Mongols' horses, trained to charge through anything, suddenly panicked at the explosions. Formations broke apart. Confusion spread. Some Mongols thought the Mamluks had unleashed fire demons. Others hesitated, giving the Mamluk cavalry the chance to strike. For the first time, the Mongols, masters of psychological warfare, were on the receiving end of it. The weapon that once gave them fear now gave it back. And in that moment, the Mamluks had found their edge. This was one of the first recorded uses of gunpowder weapons in Middle Eastern history, centuries before Europe would make them common. The Mongols had faced everything: siege machines, crossbows, even elephants, but never this. Despite the shock, Kitbuqa refused to back down. He rallied his men, slashing through the chaos, determined to break the Mamluk line. For a moment, it almost worked. The Mongols punched through the center, scattering the Mamluk front. Then Sultan Qutuz did something that legends are made of. He ripped off his helmet so his men could see his face and shouted, "Ya Islama, for Islam!" Then he charged forward himself, sword raised, right into the heart of battle. That sight, of their sultan fighting like one of them, lit a fire in the Mamluks. They regrouped, counterattacked, and unleashed everything they had. Baybar's hidden reserves stormed down from the hills, cutting off the Mongol flanks. The sky turned dark with dust, arrows, and smoke. The Mongols were surrounded, panicking, trapped in their own chaos. Kitbuqa fought to the last breath. Even surrounded, he kept swinging his sword until he was finally struck down. Some say he was captured and executed. Others say he refused to surrender and died on his feet. Either way, the Mongol army collapsed. Those who could fled north. Those who couldn't stayed forever in that valley. The Mamluks pursued the survivors for miles, cutting down the remnants of the once mighty horde. When the dust settled, the impossible had happened. The Mongols, conquerors of worlds, had been defeated in open battle. News of the Mongols' defeat spread like wildfire. In the east, it shocked Hulagu Khan. In the west, it stunned Europe. The myth of Mongol invincibility was gone. The Mamluks marched back to Cairo as heroes. Crowds filled the streets, cheering Qutuz and Baybars as saviors of Islam. But the victory didn't just save Egypt, it changed history. After Ain Jalut, the Mongols never again invaded the Middle East. The Mamluks became the new power of the region, ruling for nearly 250 years. They built mosques, schools, fortresses, and turned Cairo into one of the greatest cities of the medieval world. And that strange, smoky weapon, the midfa, became the ancestor of every cannon, musket, and rifle that followed. Gunpowder had entered the battlefield, and the world would never be the same again. So when we talk about history's turning points, Ain Jalut deserves its place beside Marathon, Hastings, or Waterloo. Because on that September morning, a few thousand men with courage, cunning, and a little fire changed the course of civilization. The Mongols weren't stopped by walls or armies, but by an idea. An idea that innovation can overcome fear. And that even the most unstoppable empire can be defeated when the right people, at the right moment, decide to fight back. The Battle of Ain Jalut wasn't just the end of Mongol expansion, it was the beginning of modern warfare. It marked the first recorded time gunpowder spoke on the battlefield, and the world has been echoing with its thunder ever since. If this story made you see history differently, hit subscribe and join us for the next hidden chapter of the past.